Hi there, and welcome to Baseball by Design. I'm your host, Paul Caputo, broadcasting live, as always, from the Helmet Sunday Hall of Fame in my basement in Fort Collins, Colorado. Very pleased today to be joined by Greg Sullivan, who is the president of the Carolina Disco Turkeys, who have taken the minor league baseball branding world by storm. Greg, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Greg, what in the world is a disco turkey?
Well, it's a conversation starter, we like to say, first of all. But ultimately, it is a peacock.
All right. That's a short and sweet answer. I like it very much. So how did the decision come about to represent Winston-Salem, North Carolina with this John Travolta style peacock that you're calling a disco turkey?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. For us, we felt a certain degree of freedom with Winston-Salem because there was already a affiliated minor league team here, the Winston-Salem Dash, who, I think have gone through that process already of like coming up with a name that, generally appeals to the city. So we, you see a lot of teams that'll do name the team contests and, really kind of, I'm sure there's multiple reasons for why they do that. Either just collecting a bunch of email addresses from entries or genuinely wanting to, if the town votes for it, no one can say you didn't listen to us, you know what I mean?
Right.
But for us, we thought, for us to come up with something that's really cool, we're just gonna have to take a risk. No one from the city suggested the name Disco Turkeys. And, maybe if it was presented to the city, but apparently by the way we've been embraced, maybe people would have voted for it if it went against some other things. But we didn't feel, we feel like it had to be liked by the city, but we didn't feel like we had to have a poll tested team name. In fact, we thought quite the opposite. Like the only way to come up with something truly great is to just go with something that just feels right. And that's the way we went with it. I don't think that would work for just any town. I think it worked really well because our city has kind of had what you would call like a cultural arts renaissance, like a lot of cities. The downtown has a lot of like art galleries and some techs moving in, like a lot of parts of North Carolina, but also at the same time, a lot of small businesses are really thriving. Obviously COVID has been a test for some of them, but a lot of those independent businesses and, art in various ways has been kind of blossoming here for the last several years. So we thought it was a city that, where everyone loves their town, but also has a sense of humor and would appreciate something that's like joyful, like Disco Turkeys.
Nice. One of the deep, dark secrets that I've learned over the years of writing about, and now just a few months of podcasting about minor league baseball logos is, no one will tell you this on the record, but the name the team contest about 60% of the time is completely fraudulent, right? Like that process is rarely, if ever, above board. It's, it's very rare that they don't actually have an idea of what they're going to be called when they go into that process. So I appreciate your honesty and just saying, you know what, we were going to pick something fun. Is there a peacock population there? Is there actually a connection between peacocks and Winston-Salem?
Yeah, there are some farms in the area that have them. There's also a science center in Greensboro, about 30 minutes from here, that has the kind of free range ones walking around the zoo area. So they're not like a foreign concept, but it's, it's not like we have since we've had this team, I have people like mention us on Twitter all the time. So like I'm joyfully aware that there are parts of the country that have peacocks just walking all over the place now.
Right.
In California, I think there's some communities where, and you usually see it when they pass some kind of law about how to enter the public to interact with them and stuff like that.
Right.
But no, I don't think we have anything like that here right now. We So yeah, we just kind of say that we're trying to make Winston-Salem known for their peacocks, but we don't have any really.
Yeah, it's funny because like when you read up on them, it's like India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, and I'm like, come on, Winston-Salem, come on, Winston-Salem. And it's, but so then, obviously the disco turkey, the peacock is a metaphor for a lot of things. So if you don't have literal peacocks in Winston-Salem, so now we've got this metaphor for this bird famous for sort of its display, its sort of flamboyant display of its feathers and whatnot. Your logo certainly encapsulates that, right? So can you talk about the design decisions of doing this? I mean, obviously, disco is in the name already, but you've done not just peacocks, but so this 70s vibe that you guys are going for, not just in the logo, but we'll talk about the uniforms as well. What was the decision there to go full 70s bell-bottom pants, John Travolta disco turkey?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things coming into play there. Just kind of on a foundational level, I knew that this is a name that I wanted to be the team name, like before the team existed, before the facility was acquired, all of this. And I think one thing, I knew I wanted it to be an animal, the actual peacock involved, in the logo. I just think it was something that's been, I mean, I know there are a couple colleges that have peacocks incorporated into their branding, and a couple smaller teams out there that have something sort of, playing to the peacock idea. But I feel like it's still it was like, why is there not some like huge successful brand that's a peacock? I love them, like you just, like walking around at a zoo or something like that. I just think they're so much fun. And, I think I wanted to really work with someone who I thought could figure out how to take the next step, because one thing I've thought about just kind of before we brought Brittain on and stuff like that to work with us on creating the illustration and fine tuning a logo for us. How do you functionally do baseball motions? Because if you think about it, the actual plumage of a peacock, the train and all that, regardless of it's, you kind of want it up, you want the feathers out to really show the colors and all this, and to be engaging. But that's like physically, that restricts a lot of options you have with baseball movement. Like if you take, first of all, it's like you're really using their feet instead of, they don't really have hands, right? So it's like they got the two legs, and so you're having to use one of the legs to throw a ball. Well, you can't really reach his leg arm past his plumage, because that would be physically challenging, right? So it's like just the shape of the body, you only have so many choices on what you can do. And so, we talked through some stuff like that. And, I think when Brittain connected the idea of Babe Ruth calling a shot also being like a John Travolta type disco move, it just really, that was what I wanted. So it was just like, aha, he nailed it with that connection, Yeah. And then I think that freed up all of this. We knew just with the name we were going to be playing on music in the era, but I think that having that like perfect pose freed up our ability to make the brand multidimensional,
Sure. I wish this is an audio medium, but I wish people could have seen the way you were contorting your body just now to describe the position that the peacock itself was in the logo. You referenced Brittain a couple of times in the next segment on this episode of the podcast. I'll be talking with Brittain Peck, who is the artist and designer who created this logo. You're seeing a lot in, especially even collegiate summer level ball now, with teams going with these big firms like Brandeis and Studio Simon. And what was the thinking in working with someone who was not explicitly a baseball logo designer and someone who wasn't necessarily one of the big firms?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think, even at the summer collegiate level, you're seeing a lot of people use these same couple of companies. and we thought it would help to stand out, to do something different. But also, like, I've worked in the arts and, stuff kind of tangentially related to art enough where I've like collaborated with a lot of designers. So I don't recommend that probably for just anybody, because I think for us, it was the best case scenario because we were able to collaborate and build trust with each other, kind of, give him enough freedom to come up with really creative ideas, but also, kind of have that dialogue and stuff. And then he can tell you some about that too. But, I don't know that, I think a lot of people are just like, here you go, here, make us a logo,
Right.
and we were able to not do that. And it worked for us. I do think once we kind of saw the direction of having it be kind of a cultural logo too, and not, with the disco elements. And we're a brand that appeals to people that love baseball, that love sports logos, but also people that don't care at all about those things. I think to draw interest of the people that don't care at all about those things, it's a lot easier having a design that's not really as kind of focus grouped and like, or corporate as some of these other ones. And I mean, some of those bigger firms do great design work.
Sure.
I think they really do. I don't think they would have been the right fit for the disco turkeys.
Sure. So I feel like when you talk about other teams and their logos, there's either, you go one of two directions. You either go hyper local and do something that is really explicitly focused on the local community. And if it catches on in the outside world, that's great. But otherwise, you've sort of focused on the local community. And then, I think that there's the very valid decision to say, we're going to create a brand that has a sort of mass appeal, and it's going to represent this team in this community. But it's something that, is going to have a larger, appeal out there in the world. People like me, I'm wearing my Carolina Disco shirt. I'm wearing my Carolina Disco Turkeys shirt right now. I have never been to a Disco Turkeys game. Before the Disco Turkeys existed, I did make it to a Winston-Salem Dash game on one of our baseball palooza road trips. But did you all go into this process with one of those two goals in mind? Either this is going to be hyperlocal, or this is going to be something we're going to try to market out there in the larger world?
Yeah, obviously it's the second, right? But at the same time, I think, the dream, which is actually starting to happen, is, I'll be with my daughter at a, birthday party or something, and someone makes the connection of, oh, the team, oh, that's your team, okay. And you realize that they're like, oh man, we're huge fans. We went out to a couple games last year. Family had a great time. It's just such a cool thing. Didn't know about it until right before the season started. And you realize like we've kind of done both, because it's like there's no obvious connection to Winston-Salem, but I think for whatever reason, people are taking pride in it being a cool aspect that belongs to Winston-Salem now.
Right. Speaking of the Dash, by the way, do you think the Dash might be a little bit jealous of all this attention that you guys are getting? I mean, the Dash, they've got a sort of classic looking logo. They used to have the baseball that was, moving real fast, dashing, and that the Winston-Salem Dash, well, I have to get this little tidbit in. The Winston-Salem Dash are named for punctuation, but it's the wrong punctuation. It should be a hyphen and not a dash, but that's the journalism minor in me coming out right there. But do you ever have conversations with the Dash where they're like, hey man, you guys are a collegiate summer level team and you're probably selling a lot more gear than we are?
Not really. I feel like they're just grateful and happy to have more people coming into the ballpark,
Sure.
In some ways, I think it's like, we probably have a lot of fan base overlap, I would say, but also there are probably parts of the city that are more energized by us, maybe because of our local connections and just being something new.
Sure.
So when they come into the ballpark, you got to think that the odds of them coming back to a Dash game at some point during the year probably go up a little bit. So I think I think they see the benefit for them in any success we have. But I do think it's cool that in a lot of ways we're not. They're two totally different things in terms of the branding. That
for sure.
No one's probably getting either of them mixed up.
That's true. That's true.
But it's kind of fun. Like we actually last year we had a game in shorts.
Yes.
And that was like, I think you guys covered that, right? Mm-hmm, so it's like it paid homage to the 1976 White Sox, right, who is the parent club of the Dash. And so it's like, in some ways, we're able to kind of make some of those connections. The White Sox kind of oddly have a, connection to this area. Like they have the AAA team in Charlotte, the low A team in Kannapolis, the Dash is the high A team.
Yeah.
And so other than, Michael Jordan, who's a Charlotte guy, right? His baseball alma mater, the Birmingham team is
right,
their only non-North Carolina minor league affiliate for whatever reason.
So you've been around, you've played one full season. In 1 year, I have written about this team 3 times on sportslogos.net. 2 of those times were the unveiling of the uniform and then the shorts that you just referenced. So the uniforms themselves, I love what you did with the uniforms in terms of, since you already had this 70s theme going with disco, you called out elements of 70s and 80s uniforms, in particular the powder blue, but like some sleeve elements. And can you talk about the decision with your uniform set to go sort of 70s, 80ish?
Sure. I think, and again, we're working with Brittain Peck on those aspects as well. I also knew he was had an apparel background as well. So that was, looking for, not really thinking of the team in one dimension at a time, like logo, other assets, uniform. Like we're very thoughtful about creating a whole image for the team, creating a whole concept, and not even just in the uniform, but what we do as a ball club, having a game in shorts, having the players just have a good time, dance, things like that. So we do a lot of that. The uniforms are great. This year we're adding some sponsor patches to a couple of them.
Okay.
Which will be kind of cool. Just experimenting with different things we can do. And I love the sleeves on the home jerseys, like, kind of like the old school Atlanta Braves jerseys. North Carolina's in a weird area. I think there's still, I don't know that everyone here is a Braves fan because we're kind of like far enough away, but everyone here probably in the 70s was a Braves fan, right?
Right. Now they should be White Sox fans.
In theory. I mean, I think you might have a few Nationals fans somewhere up in some far corner in North Carolina that I don't go to, but Braves, White Sox, and just everyone's got the cable packages, so who knows who they like these days. But I think the Hank Aaron style, feather sleeves with a peacock feather and not what the Braves were, is pretty cool. A lot of people compliment that. Yeah. And just, the lettering of, retro style lettering, bigger strips, I think are kind of cool. A lot of uniform places are like, what are you guys doing? But like we have stuff that's almost like armpit to armpit, with the fonts, which is a headache to deal with uniform people sometimes on, but it's the result, if you can get it, is really cool. And then the powder blue road uniforms, pretty great. I think one opportunity in the future is to maybe get some powder blue pants to go with them.
Heck yeah, absolutely.
we have to like kind of budget that stuff. So it's like this year we're gonna introduce some grays for the road, mainly for functionality, where players don't have to have a different, have the same pants all the time. But I'd love to have some powder blue road pants down the road.
You referenced the players a couple of times. In these articles, the press photos that you all supplied have the players themselves wearing the uniforms and kind of looking like they're, sort of goofing around, or they're sort of playing it up a little bit because it looks like they're having fun with it. You must, as a collegiate summer level team, with these players have a lot of choices. You must attract a certain style of player who likes to have fun with the game to your team.
I think so. And, different teams, I mean, it's a little bit the Wild West in a lot of ways. Like there's, you have some teams that don't even practice probably, and you have some teams that have like almost a militaristic type schedule, and so it runs the gamut. And for us, we do have a culture of, encouraging them to have fun at the games. And also, I mean, we want to win, but at the same time, we look at things like the goal here is to develop you for your college coach, build those relationships, fulfill like our part of the ecosystem, with college baseball. But yeah, I do think we do attract certain players and certain coaches to enjoy sending their players to us, I think, for that reason.
Yeah.
So we can kind of get whoever we want just about in a lot of ways, and anybody could go wherever they want.
Sure.
So yeah, I do think, the thing with being a newer team though, you have to introduce yourselves, and especially the coaches. It takes a little while to build the trust because they might be used to sending players to certain programs around the country, especially not being in a league. I think we have to have our own reputation for being a good steward of their players and stuff like that.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, we're working on all that, and I think the talent on the field will be improved in year 2, just because it's even easier to recruit once you can. Well, last year we didn't even have the name publicly out there for recruiting, so I think we're benefiting a lot as being one of those cool places to play. That said, there do seem to be a lot of cool teams around us, like the sock puppets aren't a bad team either, and the Otterbots and some of those, and a couple of the CPL teams have cool names. So yeah, I think we're not like the only choice for cool kids to go to, but I do think we're a good one.
Well, that makes my job a lot of fun, having all these cool names to choose from too. So the last thing, and I'll get you out of here on this, is, as president of the team, I'm hoping that you've got some sway here. Regular listeners of the podcast know that I have a collection of ice cream helmets. I've got about 350 of the little helmets that they serve ice cream in at baseball games. The Disco Turkeys logo would look amazing on an ice cream helmet. And I don't, to my knowledge, you guys don't have one yet. What do we have to do to get a Carolina Disco Turkeys ice cream helmet in the world?
Yeah, we'll have to have some conversations on that. It's it's a little different because like we're not the only people at the park, so we don't we collaborate with the Dash, with concessions people about kind of how that looks and stuff, because we don't play as many games as they do.
Right.
So maybe we'll talk to them and see, hey, do you guys have a ice cream helmet? Maybe we'll kind of rotate ourselves into that too.
I can tell you they did when I was there in 2017. I've got the old Dash logo on an ice cream helmet, and I'll tell you what would happen if I went to a game in Winston-Salem and they had Disco Turkeys helmets and Dash helmets. I would get 2 ice creams. So just
that's a good political answer, and it's just a healthy answer, honestly.
Well, and it would be great for sales for both teams. So anyhow, Greg, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to talk to me about this. Looking forward to talking to Brittain next to get into the nitty gritty on the logo itself. But good luck in the 2022 season, and thanks again for coming and talking to me.
Yep, thanks, Paul.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. Very pleased right now to be joined by freelance artist and illustrator Brittain Peck, who created the logo for the Carolina Disco Turkeys. And it's such an interesting conversation to have with you, Brittain, because so often I'm speaking with design firms, designers like Dan Simon of Studio Simon and Jason Klein with Brandiose, who specialize in this work of creating minor league baseball logos. But to my knowledge, the Carolina Disco Turkeys is the only baseball logo that you have created. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, for definitely for a team. I've been involved in some contests, and kind of more kind of casual, just more I guess kind of fan level design. But no, I've never been commissioned by a team to do one.
And I should say I got so excited about talking about the disco turkeys. I forgot to say thank you for being here. Appreciate you coming on the podcast and talking about your work with the disco turkeys.
Oh no, thanks for having me, man. This is fun.
Yeah, well, for me too. It's why I do it. So can you tell me how you did get involved with the disco turkeys?
Yeah. So I started long back doing just sort of more casual kind of fan level contest and things like that with UniWatch, and then um, I've worked as a designer and as an illustrator for a while, and I worked with or I got invited to be through my design work. I got invited to a kind of a contest, kind of promotion for a group in Raleigh called MLB Raleigh that was trying to build a lot of excitement around the idea of getting a major league team in Raleigh. And so I think there were, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 different designers who were invited, and we all did different logos and kind of branding elements for more kind of fictional teams that or I guess fictional brands that might be a Raleigh team. And it was a lot of fun. I did one based on barbecue. And so I loved Animal Farm, the movie, as a kid. So I based my pig on Napoleon from Animal Farm because he's a pretty fierce pig. Um, and so from that MLB Raleigh work, uh, the disco turkeys, when they were kind of taking shape and getting started, they had seen that and reached out to me. And from day one, I mean, they had the name Disco Turkeys before they contacted me. Um, well, actually, we started on another project before the Disco Turkeys, but when it came to the Disco Turkeys, that name was already kind of with the team. We had started on some other kind of projects that haven't really taken off, but anyway. But when we did the Disco Turkeys, yeah, the name was there, and yeah, we kind of just started throwing around ideas, and yeah, and everything kind of developed as together. It was a lot of fun.
So was the sort of 70s vibe something that you came up with, or was that something that the team came to you and said, hey, we want to have a whole like John Travolta feeling about this?
So the John Travolta specific kind of reference, I brought that one in, but the 70s vibe was definitely an intentional thing with an intentional influence from Greg, the team founder and owner, and I really admired it because my dad, who kind of nurtured me into loving sports aesthetics from a young age. He was a baseball player, and he always kind of talked about the look of 70s baseball as just this abomination that you kind of have this like classic era with kind of the more baggy kind of knickerbocker style pants and
right,
high stirrups, and kind of like 3/4 length sleeves, and this really kind of like wool uniform kind of look, and then all that just went out the window with polyester and spandex and elastic in the 70s, and it was just this like atrocious thing. And so I loved that what Greg was trying to do was actually take what was so hated about the 70s and just like go full into it, and I loved it. And then when he told me the name, the Disco Turkeys, at first I was just like, oh my God, you got to be kidding. Like, like, are you serious? Like that's a bit extreme. And then the more we talked, the more I was like, yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun, because he mentioned the Chicago White Sox and the kind of the big, the I forget the night that they burned all the disco records.
Disco Demolition. Yeah.
Yeah. And it became this riot practically. And we talked about kind of like, Greg's a lot of fun because we talk about baseball aesthetics, but then we also talk about larger cultural kind of forces. And and that there was this sort of like connection between this like kind of backlash against disco, which had this sort of cultural vibe to it, but then so it really kind of patterned, not to get too all into it, but it mirrors a lot of bigger things happening in our society with kind of this kind of culture clash. So when he with all that, and then it was sort of like, yeah, we're gonna lean into the 70s aesthetics. Yeah, that's where it was sort of like there was nothing too crazy. So when we started working on the logo, we had ideas. He's like, well, it's the disco turkeys, but it's really a peacock. And so then it just got crazier, and that kind of opened up a pretty wide open color palette. And then when it came to the logo itself, we were looking at, I love old mascots, how there's all these different kind of norms to it. Like you've got, like I live in North Carolina, and we've got the UNC Ramsey's mascot. He's in this kind of marching pose, and there's a bunch of university mascots that kind of have that similar marching pose. And so I like looking at kind of how the different poses are. So within baseball, you've kind of got like pitching poses, swinging poses, throwing poses that are not pitching. Like the San Diego Padres have this really cool kind of like exaggerated swing.
The swinging friar, absolutely.
Yeah, and so I was like, well, what would the disco turkey be doing? Like what's his what feels right for him? And so kind of just looked at a lot of different ideas, and the boldness of calling a shot, like with the Babe Ruth point, that felt like a disco turkey. Like that felt like such a arrogant thing to do. And then I was like, oh man, the point, like that could be Travolta. And so then it just became like, if I could pull off getting that to look like both Babe Ruth and Travolta, then it would be like absolutely perfect. And it would make disco feel like it belongs in baseball, which was sort of like intentionally disco was kind of kicked out of baseball in the.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I mean, and that disco demolition night was 1977. And I think ever since then, disco has been persona non grata in baseball. Absolutely. So the colors themselves, I mean, so the colors have a very definite sort of 70s feel about them. So what were you guided more by the 70s or more by the idea of the peacock itself with, and I don't even know how to describe some of these colors. You've obviously got sort of a royal blue and then a darker blue, like a navy. You've got almost like a cyan or a teal for the feathers of the peacock. And then maybe, I don't know, it's not pink and it's not orange. I think the term salmon might be overused here, but how would you describe that orangey pinkish red color?
Yeah, kind of salmon or coral, somewhere in there.
Coral.
Yeah.
Coral. I think coral. That feels more 70s-ish to me there. I guess you could just give the Pantone numbers here and cut out all of the Crayola names for these colors. But where did that color palette come from?
Well, so the 70s definitely kind of like gave a free pass, like gave permission. When you look at like that really iconic kind of Astros rainbow uniform, is really kind of nothing you can't do then. And a really like kind of pairing the 70s baseball aesthetic with this sort of more traditional baseball aesthetic that I think the Yankees really are kind of like the kind of the poster boys for. The Yankees like have one color practice. It's just dark navy. And then and so I wanted to go as far away from that as possible. So like, if you think about like getting outside of baseball, like iconic brands, like the Lakers are, kind of yellow and purple, or the Bears are navy and orange. I was like, well, what if it's not just two colors? What if, the disco turkeys should have permission to have 15 colors if we wanted, So it's just sort of, made it wide open. And so blue felt like it always belonged because they have, peacocks have like this blue head and this kind of royal blue. And then being in North Carolina too, there's like blue is a very charged color here because, Duke and Carolina really claim different shades of
for blue. Sure.
So to be a universal, kind of, appeal in North Carolina, you've got to be careful around blue. So we're just like, well, we'll just use a bunch of them. We use light blue, dark blue, navy, royal, whatever.
I didn't even think of describing those as Duke blue and Carolina blue. I guess I should have started there.
Yeah. I mean, I've got kids and they're already, it starts early. I grew up here too. And yeah, you have to choose pretty early on. Kids form little friendships around, school allegiances. But yeah, then one thing that I intentionally did was, so like when you look at a peacock, they tend to be mostly like blue and green, and I thought blue and green might be good, but we actually kind of found like I like the idea of blue and orange just because contrast wise they kind of work better, I feel, than blue and green. And I kind of got permission to use the orange. I didn't know this at first, but when a peacock opens its wings, underneath its wings, it's got these kind of corally salmon colored feathers that you can really only see when it's flying. And so when we saw that, we're like, oh, there we go. We can use orange, and we were allowed to. But then, yeah, as we started, the earlier designs were all blue and green. And then when we saw that, we started using this kind of almost like white to navy blue gradient was sort of how we thought about it. And then orange to like really be a shock to that. And it, one of my favorite things about it, I mean, I love the logo, but I also really love that kind of stripe pattern. I just feel like this sort of 4-color stripe pattern, white, blue, 2 blues, and then this orange, just really to me felt like an element that feels very specifically dated in the 70s.
For sure.
So yeah, that felt right when we kind of landed on that.
Well, and that color palette comes through very strongly in the uniform set that I understand you also helped design.
Yep.
So that those uniforms throw back to the 70s in a sort of, somewhat specific ways, like the sleeve patch that sort of evokes the Braves old sleeve patch from the Hank Aaron uniforms. The script on the front has a sort of Cleveland feeling about it. I mean, there's a bunch of teams that are sort of referenced in these uniforms that you've designed. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely, yeah. We definitely. So the when I was a kid, that Astros uniform that I mentioned with like the rainbow stripes, that was seen as just this like almost clown costume, and now I've seen a lot of colleges really get into it and kind of reclaim it. So we definitely did not want to do anything that really was too close to that, because it's kind of gotten popular now. And so, we wanted to avoid that. But also I love that uniform, but we also wanted to say, well, people know that one more now, but let's like get into all these other uniforms from the 70s that are also like, whether you like them or not, they're great, whether you find them hideously great or really great. So yeah, that Atlanta uniform with the sleeve on the shoulder was by far the biggest influence for the home uniform. The other one that we used as a big reference there, one thing real quick about that feather was we wanted to claim it enough as our own, so where it wasn't just totally taking it from the Atlanta uniform. So we changed they kind of had this little kind of triangle kind of shape inside the feather, and we took that out and put an orange circle, thinking that from a distance you would just kind of see this orange circle on the player's shoulder, and that would kind of feel like the eyes that are in the peacock's feather. And so that felt pretty right when we did that. And then the other big thing was just the like overblown size lettering on the chest. We had seen these Cleveland uniforms where it said Indians across the chest, and the letters were so big, the top of the I and the top of the S were like in the player's armpits. And we love that because it was just so, over the top, like it literally it's barely fitting on the jersey. And then the other thing that we thought was cool about the 70s was the introduction of the powder blue uniforms. And we wanted a uniform that would feel like a home uniform or an away uniform. So we thought that was nice, and then liked how they just kind of were pretty simple with like a script on the front, this kind of baby blue, and then the stripe pattern on the sleeve was kind of where that one came from.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, it's the uniforms are so much fun. I mean, obviously just, like the logo is as well. And Greg and I did talk about how much the players are enjoying them themselves, about what that role the uniforms have played and the logo has played in bringing, players to the team. So you've dipped your toe into the world of minor league baseball branding, and I'm sure you've become, familiar with all the trends and everything out there. It's obviously it's a cluttered landscape, right? Just by virtue of how many teams there are and the disparate styles and the approaches to branding and that sort of thing. But you've done this one logo and it's had a lot of success. Have other teams come knocking, looking for you to help them with their brands?
No, I mean, I'd welcome it, but yeah, no, no, I think I mean, and I'm okay with that. I mean, I would love for another team. I'd really do love working on baseball or any sports. But no, I don't like it. I mean, if anyone were to look at my other work, I do some branding for small businesses and stuff like that. But I admire a lot of the agencies and designers who really exclusively work in sports branding in that. I think there's really amazingly talented people doing that. But one thing I do like, and Greg and I really intentionally talked about this, was if you look at like old logos, there's definitely trends and styles in old logos. But one thing that I think it might be kind of a hindsight is 2020 thing. But one thing that I don't think happened as much in the past was because there was no internet, it was harder to see how everyone was working and really kind of influence each other as quickly and as much as I think it's possible now. So we wanted to, we wanted to be aware of trends and what other designers are doing, but we also kind of wanted, we gave ourselves permission to intentionally be not only different, but even potentially kind of like bad. Like, not saying that we like wanted to do anything that we didn't think was good work, but we wanted permission to break rules, So if you look at like my brother, he was a big Chicago Cubs fan when we were kids, and he got this old Chicago Cubs hat that had it didn't have a C on it. It was just this white bear who had like a little bat. And it's hard to tell that it's a bear even when you're up close on it. It's just like kind of looks like a blobby Yeti, kind of snowman figure. But that worked. That was a team's hat. And I think that it just branding and marketing and merchandise played such a different role in the past that things. So we kind of wanted to work in a place where we wanted to make something exciting and that we're really proud of how it's played the role that it has. But we kind of wanted to intentionally play by our own rules too. And like, a team named the Disco Turkeys got to play by its own rules,
Well, it's had an enormous success out there. And I mean, it's really, I've got a Disco Turkeys t-shirt, and, I haven't been to North Carolina in years. So, absolutely, it's had huge success out there. So I really do appreciate you coming on and taking a minute to talk about it. And where can people find you and the work that you're doing outside of baseball?
Oh, cool. Yeah. Well, I've got a website. It's just my name, BrittainPeck.com. And I'm on Instagram as Brittain Peck. I think it's just all together. It's like, I've got 2 T's in my name, so it's a little different spelling.
Okay.
But yeah, those places. And then, I'm just kind of I do love sports branding, but yeah, a lot of my other work is kind of all over the various applications of illustration. So it's kind of a mixed bag.
Well, that's why I enjoyed this conversation so much, because it is, different from the other conversations that I've had. So I really very much appreciate you taking your time and and can't wait to make it out to a Disco Turkeys game.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Thanks, Brittain. Take care.
Thanks, man. You too.
All right, everyone, welcome back. We're going to talk about peacocks right now. This is an exciting opportunity that we have to talk to Matt Strangewayes, who is the interpretive content manager with the Phoenix Zoo. And Matt, thanks very much for being here.
You're welcome, Paul. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Absolutely. Can you tell me, at the Phoenix Zoo, do you have peacocks wandering free like we do at the Denver Zoo?
We don't now, but we did when I started there. So my first 3 or 4 years, we had them wandering.
Okay. While they were there, did you ever call them disco turkeys or hear anyone else call them disco turkeys?
I had not. This is new to me, so I got a good laugh out of that. So yeah, that was the first time was with your call, actually. So
oh, no kidding. All right. Well, let's just talk about the peacock then as an animal. Obviously, they are native to North Carolina. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, well, not exactly. They are probably found there in most of the world at this point, but there's actually 3 species of peacock. There's the Indian peacock, which is the one that we're most familiar with, that's domesticated and found on all sorts of places, and also originally from India and Sri Lanka. Then there is the green or the Indonesian peacock, which is native to a number of countries in Southeast Asia. And then the 3rd peacock species is the Congo peacock, found in the Congo region of Central Africa. Yeah, but just usually when we're talking peacocks, we're usually talking about the Indian peacock. That's what most people are familiar with.
Okay. So is that the one you've likely seen the logo already? Do you feel like the Indian peacock is the one that's represented in the Carolina Disco Turkeys logo here?
Yeah, I would say so. Well, when I heard the name before I saw the logo, I didn't know if it was going to be a turkey in a disco suit, or I didn't know what to expect, but I was pleasantly surprised to see it was a peacock. So I thought they did a pretty good job.
Well, when you follow them on social media, you'll see they kind of claim both. You know, whenever there's peacock news, they're all about it. Like in the college basketball tournament, when the St. Peter's Peacocks were making their run. But then, you know, on Thanksgiving, you know, everyone was sending thoughts and prayers to the disco turkeys to make sure that they were okay.
Well, you know, that's not entirely a mistake. They are pretty closely related. They're in the same family, the Phascidae, which is pheasants and turkeys and peacocks and large ground birds like that. So it's not entirely off. They're close cousins.
So what is there something in particular about a peacock or a disco turkey that would make it a good baseball player?
You know what? When I think about that, at first glance, that's not what comes to mind is athletics. You know, they're not like a mockingbird who's hopping around or a peregrine falcon who's got this amazing speed or something. But and they actually do have a lot of attributes that are useful for ball. They're sturdy. They're tall animals as far as birds go, at least. They got a 5-foot wingspan, which is a pretty good wingspan for a bird, bigger than most, and that would translate really well into a pitcher or a first baseman or anybody playing ball.
For sure.
They've got really good eyes, which was the first thing they tell you, keep your eye on the ball, right? So they've got great color vision. They can see movement, not as good as some others, but again, probably better than average. They're clever. They're trainable. So they're good for memorizing signals and stuff like that. They're fast, relatively fast as birds go. They can get up to about 10 miles per hour on the ground, which is a pretty fast runner. It's about half the speed, maybe the top baseball player, but in the bird world, they got pretty good fast twitch muscles and they're tough and physically strong and adaptable. Probably the thing that is their strongest attribute would be their confidence. They're super cocky. I mean, it's a peacock. So it makes me think of, like the Ty Cobbs or the Ricky Hendersons or the Willie Mays Hayes from Major League, that ability to just believe you're going to win at all times. And that's the peacock thing, isn't it? Look at me. I'm the champ. So I think those are a lot of things that would help.
Absolutely. And well, that's a real like Moneyball style breakdown of the attributes of the peacock, right? Because you look at them and you're not going to think athlete right away, but dig a little deeper, get under that surface, and you're gonna see some of this Billy Bean style analysis that you pulled out right there. So
exactly.
I like that a lot.
It's worth it.
Now, what about since these are the disco turkeys, what about peacocks as dancers?
Oh boy. You know, there's a few birds that are a little bit more elaborate, have a, few more steps in their arsenal. But as far as impressiveness and the overall, we've all seen like Cher with their big outfits and whatnot, and all the best, rock groups and things like that. A lot of them have these really elaborate concepts for their stage and everything. So they're good dancers, but they set it up with this beautiful visage. So the peacock has this train, the male peacock has this tail, it's also known as the train, that is just ridiculously gorgeous. It's iridescent. It has all these colors, and the female, the peahen, can actually see on a level that we can't. So as beautiful it is to us, you can only imagine what it looks like to her. So the dance as an overall is very, very, very impressive, even if what they do might be a little bit more subdued.
I get that. You listen, if you don't have the moves, you can at least flash the style, So
exactly. And they got a good shake, so they belong, they belong there. They have their thing.
So at the zoo then, outside the baseball context here, what kind of draw are the peacocks? Is it, are there many people who are going to have like the peacocks in the top 5 must-see exhibits when they get to the zoo?
Well, we had them as free roaming, and then for a while we had green peacocks in one of our aviaries. And, no matter what, even though they're common and we see them in popular culture, NBC's logo, they're well known in historical culture, all these things, when you see them in person, you can never really prepare for it. Even when they're just subdued, even the peahens just have that iridescent color. So it may not be something that people say, hey, let's go to the zoo to see the peacocks. But when they do see the peacocks, they still get that awe. They're still overwhelmed with how beautiful they are, especially if it's a male displaying.
So they're like this is like the first guy off the bench. It's like that steady middle reliever. It's the dependable journeyman who isn't going to be the highest draft pick or the highest paid free agent, but you're really glad to have them on your team.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been, he hit 7 in the lineup, but he's been hitting over 270 for 10 seasons in a row. He's a good team leader in the dugout. He's positive, yeah. Intangibles.
Intangibles, exactly. How are we on in terms of the peacocks? How are we on their status in terms of endangerment or anything like that? Are they okay? Are we comfortable with the species population?
Yes and no. For the Indian peacocks, they're doing pretty good. Even in the wild, they're doing okay, because there's kind of a general in India, they're revered. So while there is some poaching and some risk, they're in general they're welcomed. And then of course they've been domesticated worldwide. So just by their association with humans, they benefit from it. There's certain species, pigeons, dogs, domesticated animals, that they spread because humans spread and humans do well. So in that sense, the Indian peacock is doing well. The Congo peafowl is not doing as well. They're considered vulnerable. So there are some conservation actions right now. They have a fairly not super small, but they're found in one region. And that's always a little bit of concern. And then the green or Indonesian, they're actually endangered by the IUCN, the International Union for Conservation of Nature. So there is a lot of concern about this species. They had a traditionally very wide range, but it's being reduced. So there is concern about their future. They're not that low yet, but there are conservation actions in place that are very necessary.
So the one thing that I would really like to see, since you're in Phoenix, you're at the Phoenix Zoo, the Carolina Disco Turkeys are a collegiate summer level team, which means that these are a lot of players who are just poised to start on their professional careers. What I'm really hoping now that they've the Carolina Disco Turkeys are established as a baseball team is we're going to see some guys get drafted by major league teams and play spring training baseball in Phoenix, so that you'll have Carolina Disco Turkeys there in Phoenix, just like you have peacocks at the Phoenix Zoo.
That would be amazing. That would be fantastic. And if that does happen, tell them to get a hold of you. You get a hold of me. They'll be my guest at the zoo.
We'll make this happen. That's perfect. Matt, thank you so much. Where can we find the Phoenix Zoo on online and on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty much everywhere on social media. Our Twitter is hot. We got lots of fun stuff on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. And then, of course, phoenixzoo.org.
Okay. And how about you, Matt? Where can we find you?
Oh, lurking in the shadows. I do have an Instagram account. You can find it under my name, Matt Strangewayes, author. There's an underscore there between Matt and Strangewayes, I believe.
Okay. Fantastic. Matt, thank you so much. This has been a blast. I feel like I know so much more about peacocks and disco turkeys and how good they would be at baseball.
Awesome. That's great. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
All right. See you down the line, Paul.